Hello, and welcome to Mosquito Fleet Mondays, where we look at the prominent ships in Puget Sound history. I am your host, Ed Brown, head docent aboard the SS Virginia 5. Today, we will be discussing the first steamboat on Puget Sound, the sidewheel steamship Beaver. Beaver was built in Blackwall, England, of British oak, elm, greenheart, and teak, with copper plating over her wooden hull. She was 101 feet long, 33 feet wide, and registered at 109 tons. Leaving Britain in December of 1835, the Beaver's paddle wheels were left unmounted so that she could be sailed as a brig across the Atlantic, around Cape Horn, and up the Columbia River. Reaching Fort Vancouver in April of 1836, her paddle wheels were mounted and her boiler and engines hooked up. The Beaver did not remain on the Columbia long, and she was soon sent up to Fort Nisqually on the Puget Sound. The early steamer was not particularly efficient. Her original boiler operated at about 3 psi, and she burned 40 cords of wood a day. For every day of operation, 2 more were required to chop more wood. Because her boiler used salt water, it had to be replaced every 7 years, and later rebuilds made the steamer more efficient. As the Beaver paddled up and down the Salish Sea and as far north as Alaska, she was an important figure in the early Pacific Northwest. She helped the British keep control of British Columbia during the Fraser Gold Rush of 1858 and surveyed the coast of BC in 1862. In 1874, the British Columbia Towing and Transportation Company purchased the Beaver and had her refitted as a tugboat. In 1888, the Beaver ran aground on the rocks at Prospect Point, where Stanley Park is now in Vancouver, BC. The wreck sat on the rocks for 4 years, where it was a familiar sight to locals, before it was washed from the rocks and sank in 1892. Before this, however, the wreck was stripped of all of its important artifacts, many of which are now held at the Vancouver Maritime Museum. A plaque now stands in Stanley Park to memorialize Vancouver's most famous shipwreck. Thank you for watching. Next episode, we'll be looking at the sidewheeler Eliza Anderson.